folks, I'm Tom Vasel. A bit ago, we did our top 10 two-player casual games. Games to play real casually with two players. And then, a little bit after that, we did our top 10 advanced two-player games. Now, in the advanced one, we mentioned that, I constantly mentioned that there was a game that was not advanced enough to make my advanced list, but was too complicated maybe to be on the casual list, my hidden middle list. So I thought I would do that. These are two-player games that kind of are not in what I would consider to be advanced, but I also don't consider them to be casual. Here's the deal. You can move these games pretty easily. You could say, that one's a little casual, more casual, Tom, or this one's a little bit more advanced, whatever. Either way, these are 10 great two-player games. So let's get started. Number 10 is the biggest game I own. I own so much of this that it's in tubs and tubs, and that's Heroescape. Now, Heroescape is a tougher game to find these days because it's out of print. But if you can get the starter set or the Marvel starter set at a garage sale somewhere, it's worth getting. This was so easy. Now, it came with basic rules, which honestly would fit in my casual list. But the advanced rules, which are much better and they're not even that complicated, you just had different characters from different periods of time fighting each other. Silly, very entertaining fun, and the most complex powers were not that complex in the game. Number 9 is Res Arcana. I personally think Res Arcana is best with 2. You can play with more than that, where you're a magician, and in this game, you have a small number of cards, and you are trying to build an engine with those cards, also using tiles in the middle of the table. It's not a complex game at all. You're just grabbing these tiles, getting the resources. Where the strategy and complexity is figuring out the combination between these. Like if I do this, I can use this tile to do that and sell these to get points here. It's a really cool game. I think it's fantastic. Res Arcana. Number 8, similar to that, is one of my favorite games, Race for the Galaxy, which I think is best at 2. Now, some folks might even say that Race for the Galaxy belongs on the advanced two-player list, and I could see that because there is a lot of symbols on it, but it isn't that complex. Again, the complexity comes in doing well. If you've never played Race for the Galaxy before and you play me, the chance of me beating you is quite high because I know a lot of the strategies, a lot of things, knowing the cards in the deck. But beyond that, more than that, it does make sense. You just got to learn that system, and it kind of all flows together. So there's a little bit of a learning curve at the beginning because it is pick a card, do the action that card lets you, everyone does it, you get a bonus, and play cards from your hands as planets and technologies. They're getting over at a little bit of a bump to get the rules and the symbols, then it's easy, but then it's a bump again to get better at the game. But I don't think it rises to the, ooh, this is a tough one. I can teach this to a lot of people, but I wouldn't call it casual either. Number 7 is Undaunted. I put Memoir 44 on my base list because it's very simple. You want to step up from that? Undaunted. Undaunted is a World War II game, and there's 2 versions at the time of speaking. Either one's fine. Undaunted North Africa, Undaunted Normandy. But you have some units, just a few units on the board, and you're using a deck building mechanism to move them around and fight. Here's the thing. The deck building is a little bit complex in a sense to understand. These cards, I want to add more cards to my deck, and that will allow me to use this character more often and also keep their life point totals up. But when it comes time for combat, it's like count this, roll this, hit, done. Very simple. So it mixes some interesting systems, and the whole thing overall is not going to be really palatable to people who are new to the genre. But the result is not a complex game, but feels a lot deeper than some more complex games that are about war out there. I really like Undaunted. Number 6 is Skulk Hollow. In Skulk Hollow, it is a giant monster against a small band of heroic woodland creatures. The woodland creatures can pick a different leader, and the monster, there's several monsters to pick from. So it's a big giant thing against smaller ones, but it's just card play. You're playing cards, fighting each other. The big monsters have some special abilities. It's not that, there's really not a ton to going on, but the strategy opportunities are really there. And yes, when you play one monster, it's a little bit different than playing another one. The woodland creatures play pretty much the same each time. but it also has this very different, divergent idea. Like, the sides are very different. I have a bunch of little people running around. You have just one big guy, and I have to figure out what locations to destroy on this beast. So, oh, it can't use its arm anymore because we destroyed that arm, but it might get it back too. It is a lot of fun with amazing artwork and graphics too. Number 5 is Dice Throne. A lot of dice games out there. And Yahtzee, very popular game, was turned into King of Tokyo, which is, a big round game of monsters fighting each other. Dice Throne feels like a slightly advanced King of Tokyo that works really well for 2. Yes, technically this game can play more than 2, but it is best as a 2-player game, straight head-to-head. And there, you can buy a small set of just 2, or you can buy the big sets that have 8 different ones you can fight against each other. Everyone's different. And you roll dice, you keep some, you re-roll, you keep some, you re-roll. And then you use the combination to pick some sort of attack and or defense if someone's attacking you. It's fantastic. I really like this game. Every character feels extremely different. You feel like you're doing these really deep, cool, strategic things, but the game isn't that complicated. You roll, try to match a combo, and see what it does. Certainly some characters are a little more complex to play than others, but the whole game itself feels like a breath of fresh air. It's easy to get into, so that is Dice Throne. Number 4 is 1960. On my advanced list, I put Twilight Struggle. Twilight Struggle, the Cold War, 1 vs. 1. Oh, what a game. 1960 is an easier version of that. It depicts the election between John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon in 1960, which was a very close election, and also, hopefully, far enough removed from us now that we can look back at it a little bit dispassionately. And you take one of the two sides, and it's asymmetrical, but very lightly, and you're just trying to get votes in as many states as you can. It does a good job at teaching the electoral system in the U.S., but it has that cool card play that Twilight Struggle has, but without the massive overhead of I have no idea what to do. Here you still have lots of choices. Do I want to go for California or to get Idaho, Oklahoma, and Nevada? You have those kind of choices. It has historical events in it, which kind of gives it a nice flavor, but it's never overwhelming. I have played 1960 with many people who I wouldn't ever show Twilight Struggle to, which is why it's on this list. Number 3 is Baseball Highlights 2030. Now, despite the fact that this game does not look that great, and despite the fact that you may or may not like baseball, you should. Baseball is an amazing sport. This game is going to work, I think, for a lot of people, even if you don't like baseball. It's a deck-building game of sorts. You have this baseball team at the beginning, and you're playing kind of an advanced rock, paper, scissors. As I play a card, you counter that, I play it back, and we're playing a baseball game, an entire game, very quickly. Then, in between games, we will use money of sorts to buy new players to our games. Now, this is in the future. Some of these players are robotic, some are android. That doesn't really matter, but they give different special abilities, and then you have a new team. And in between each game, your team gets a little bit different, a little bit better, and you go back and forth. That's really fun. For me, the base game itself is really simple, but when you add in that in-between building of the deck, that's where it increases the notch of woo-hoo-hoo, what can we do here, which puts it on this list. Number 2 is Thunder and Lightning. This is a remake of a classic game called Hera and Zeus. Thunder and Lightning, which is essentially Thor versus Loki, pits 2 people against each other, and this is Stratego turned into a card game, but it's more than that. I'm trying to find one card that you have. We're playing cards in front of us, and they can attack each other, higher number wins like Stratego, and we're keeping cards in our hand. So I'm trying to figure out if you kept the card in your hand, because I have cards that let you pick a card out of your hand and kill it, or if you put it on the table to protect it. And then all these cards have special abilities. It is a really well-designed game. It's a notch above casual, but definitely not that complex. And my number 1 game on my super secret list of medium inside 2-player games is a very new one, another World War II themed game, but this one is very, very abstract, and that's Blitzkrieg. Blitzkrieg is a game in which you are pulling tiles from a bag, and you're placing these tiles on the board, trying to control various areas. I just consistently pull this out all the time, because you pull a tile and you got to decide where to put it. There's not a lot of place to put it, but which theater are you going to put it to? You're doing little tug of wars in all these theaters, and then what space you put it on determines a special ability that you might get. It might give you a victory point. It might give you extra fighting power in that space. It might let you take a technology tile, which you throw in your bag, and only you have. It's fantastic. It's really good. I think maybe it's the war theme that keeps people from loving this, but man, Blitzkrieg is just one of the best games I played. Every time I bring it out, I teach it to someone, they like it every single time. It's a little hard to get, but hopefully it will be reprinted and be easier to pick up. Just a fantastic game. So those are my top 10 mid-weight two-player games. Like I said, of course, you could argue either way. What are yours? Let me know in the comments. And I should mention, Z's also doing a list to match me here. So go check out his things and see who's right, who's wrong. We'll tell you next time. Or will we? I'm Tom Vasel. See you in the Dice Tower.